Hello, this is Emily Beach, and in today's video, I'm going to walk through how to paint this monochromatic landscape painting. The first thing I did was I put a border on my paper, and that's just going to help prevent me from getting any paint on my table surface. Then I mixed up a tint, so it's almost completely white. And for this monochromatic painting, I am doing tints and shades of a blue-green color that I've mixed. So I just put a tiny, tiny bit of that blue-green color into the white and painted the whole entire piece of paper with that color. The next thing I did was I mixed a tiny bit more of that color in. This is going to make a little bit darker of a tint. And I put my first layer of mountains in there. Then I'm going to do a little bit darker color and do a second row of mountains. Again, when I do this, I just mix a tiny bit more color in with my white. And I'm going to paint across that horizon line and then paint all the way down to the bottom of my landscape, all the way down. After I let that dry, I'm going to mix just a tiny bit more of my blue-green in, make a little bit darker of a tint, and I did this second layer. Now for my next row, I'm just adding a little bit more detail into this row of mountains. Just making that horizon line a little bit more jagged. So I'm putting in a couple more rows of this next color tint of green, blue, and you can see that the edges are just a little bit more jagged. So with atmospheric perspective, things get duller and less detailed as they go back into space. So that's why the mountains in the background have smoother lines, and then the areas as they get closer are going to have a little bit more detail. After my 6 layers of tints, I'm now working with the pure hue. And this is going to be a little bit more of a middle ground layer with my pure hue. And I just laid down another horizon line, and I'm putting in some smaller trees. These are going to be kind of back in the distance. They're not going to have a lot of detail in them, but I'm just going to put a few little evergreens in there, and then I'm going to put a few deciduous trees in there also, just to kind of create a little bit of a tree line back in the distance. Now I'm mixing just a little bit of black with my hue, which is going to make a shade, and I'm going to be adding some larger trees a little bit closer, and I'm gonna try to have a little bit more detail in those leaves. And so this color is definitely darker, and we want the things that are up closer to be lower in the picture plane and also just have a little bit more detail to them. And then here's an evergreen, another evergreen, just to have these are a little bit closer into the foreground. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add a little bit more black into my hue. This is going to be the darkest shade that I'm going to be working with, and this is going to be my foreground. So the largest things, the closest things in my painting. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit of grass there in the foreground, and now these are going to be the largest trees in my landscape. They're going to be going up and off of the page, and just making sure that the leaves have just a little bit more detail to them. This painting has 6 different tints, 1 layer of pure hue, and then 2 shades. And you could certainly add more darker shades and continue to add more foreground details, or you could have even more layers of tints.